Welcome to the Woman Worriers podcast, where we're working to help you call a truce with your anxiety. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now, here's your host, Elizabeth Cush, LCPC.
Welcome back to the Woman Worriers podcast. Today I'm doing a solo episode about managing your anxiety when things don't go as planned. Interestingly enough, one of my most popular blogs is on this topic, that there are times when we're struggling to manage the anxiety because something got in the way of our plans. Something didn't go the way we expected. Or we had things all planned out and some emergency popped up, or who knows, right? Well, before we get started, once again, I just want to say thanks to all the listeners and subscribers. There are so many podcasts out there that you can tune into. I appreciate your tuning in week after week. If you have not subscribed, I would love it if you would do so and leave an honest review. iTunes is particularly focused on reviews and subscriptions to evaluate how well podcasts are doing or whether they deem them as valuable. So it's helpful. But I would also just love it if you would subscribe. It would make me happy. So if you don't know how to do that when you get into iTunes, there is a little drop-down arrow under the podcast logo, and you can click subscribe, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the podcast, there's a place to leave reviews as well. If there are topics that you would like covered, please feel free to reach out through thewomanwarriors.com or progressioncounseling.com. Click the Contact Me link and shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you if there are topics you would like to hear about. So I've been thinking about writing another blog post about managing our anxiety when we're no longer feeling in control of our life or when things don't go the way we had planned. And so this feels timely. And the reason I decided to do it today was because I had scheduled someone to do a double episode. So we were going to record 2 episodes. I had the time blocked out. And she got in a car accident. She emailed like minutes before we were to begin recording and said, "I'm so sorry. I can't, this is obviously, she had a car accident. She couldn't record a podcast interview from the rental car place or whatever." So my plans didn't go the way I expected. But I had the time set aside, so I thought, why not? We'll figure it out. So I know that to manage my anxiety, often trying to plan out and organize and list make can help me feel like things are under control. If I know the plan, if I am clear about what needs to be done that day, it helps me to feel in control. And in some ways, it helps to manage my anxiety because I feel as if things are under control. But stuff always gets in the way, right? Life. We can't control life. We can't control someone else getting in a car accident. We can't control a child getting sick or getting a flat tire or whatever it might be. But when that happens, lots of stuff can happen internally for us. You might feel a tightness. So for me, getting a tightness in my chest, feeling uncomfortable in my body, that's my anxiety signal. For you, it might be an upset stomach, or tightness in your shoulders, or irritability, or maybe a general sense of foreboding. Something's not right. This is not good. You might be resistant to doing things differently when you're presented with this obstacle and you have to do things differently because you can't do them the way you had planned. We might feel some resistance to that. Like, I don't want to do it that way. Or you could get hyper-focused on how maybe things could have gone differently. If I'd planned this for a different day. If she hadn't gotten in that car accident. If I just hadn't been there in that moment when this thing happened. And maybe we worry about changing plans. Well, what if? What if we do this differently? What if, my child is sick and I decide not to go? Then what? And sometimes we just get stuck. A change can make us feel as if we don't want to do anything at all. We just want to go back home and get under the covers and say, just forget the whole day. And as I said, sometimes it can make you irritable and angry. I know when I was raising kids and really not tuned into my anxiety, not working on managing it, I was just kind of surviving with it. When things didn't go the way I wanted them to, or if I felt like I didn't have a clear idea of what the plans were, I got irritable. I think back, I can't tell you the times that I would snap at my husband or my kids because I was stressed, because I was feeling like life was out of control. Or you might just be feeling unsettled, like, this just doesn't feel good. But the bottom line is, we're feeling vulnerable in those moments because we worked really hard to plan whatever it was. We worked really hard to feel like things were under control, whether it was making lists or planning your itinerary from moment to moment, or just having a general sense of what the day was going to look like when this, whatever it was, this wrench got thrown into the system. And now you have to do things differently. That feels really vulnerable and scary. Because anything could go wrong at any time, which is actually a reality, right? That's life. We cannot control what goes on. So if you've ever experienced this, if this is a common thread for you, that feeling like things aren't under control, or you get super stressed when things don't go as planned, here's a couple of steps you can take to help you manage that anxiety in the moment. And the idea is that we don't want to ignore the anxiety. We don't want to push it away. We don't want to bully ourselves into feeling bad about the fact that we're anxious. We just want to tune in to our anxiety in a way that's compassionate and caring, with curiosity and a sense of calm. So the first step is you just want to tune into you, tune into yourself, check in. What is happening for you? Where do you notice the anxiety? Do you feel a tightness in your chest? Or does your throat close? Does your stomach get upset? Do you feel tension in your shoulders or your forehead? Where do you feel it in your body? Is this a familiar feeling? Something you recognize as being a part of your anxious symptoms? And once you get a good sense of where you're holding that anxiety in your body, just take a deep breath. Slow inhale. And letting it go slowly. Now, if you can, with curiosity, try to figure out what is the feeling? What is it that you're feeling in this moment, right here, right now? Research shows that if you can name your feelings, especially difficult, painful feelings, uncomfortable feelings, if you can name those in the moment, it helps to relieve the distress. So instead of ignoring the feeling or telling yourself you shouldn't feel whatever it is, anxious, depressed, stressed, sad, just allowing yourself to name it and be with it, that goes a long way to relieve the intensity of that feeling. So take another slow, deep breath. And try saying to yourself, I'm feeling whatever it is, you name it, scared, anxious, depressed, afraid, worried, distressed, because suddenly things didn't go as planned. And try not to push away the anxiety or the difficult feelings. Just allow them to be there. I'm feeling stressed right now because my plans changed and I wasn't ready for that. And that makes me feel like things are out of control, which really leaves me feeling uncomfortable and a little bit scared. Or maybe you just say, hey, anxiety, I see you there. I see that you've shown up around this. Welcome. I can feel you in my chest. I can feel you in my throat. And thanks for letting me know that this situation is causing me a little distress. So let's take another deep breath in, letting it out slowly. And now acknowledge that you are struggling, that this is really hard. When things don't go as planned, it's really hard because it makes me feel like things are out of control, and that's not a way I like to feel. And remember that you're not alone. Lots of people struggle with this. Remember that the blog post I wrote about how to manage anxiety when things don't go as planned is my most popular blog. So lots of people are feeling this way. You are not alone in your struggle. Everyone struggles from time to time, whether it's with this or something else. A self-compassion exercise that you can do in this moment is putting your hand on your heart or another place that feels comfortable and soothing to you, and offer yourself these words. This is a moment of suffering. Everyone struggles from time to time. May I be kind and accept myself as I am. And check in with yourself again. Just notice if the sensations or feelings have changed at all. If they haven't, you can repeat those phrases again, taking a slow, deep breath before and after to help ground yourself in the moment. And then maybe get curious and ask yourself, are there positive things that came from this change? Are there things that I can do differently now that things have changed? Maybe it might open you up to a new experience. Say, if a road closed and you had to go a different way, maybe you'll get to see a different part of the country or a different part of your town that you hadn't been in before. Or maybe it gives you time to do something else. If you're stuck in traffic and you're going to be late, maybe you can listen to a podcast or an audiobook or a radio program that you hadn't heard before or hadn't listened to in a long time. Or maybe you can have that conversation with your husband or your wife or your partner or your kids or your coworker, whoever's in the car with you. Or maybe it's just an opportunity to get to know your anxiety a little bit better. For me, in the past, I think this could have really sort of turned me upside down, the rescheduling of the podcast. You know, I would have perhaps been worried about, well, what's the next episode going to be? Am I going to have enough recorded that I'm going to be okay? You know, what am I going to do with this time? But I've worked hard at managing my anxiety, especially around the not knowing, the uncontrollable nature of life. And so when this opportunity presented itself, when my colleague emailed and said, "I'm so sorry, I have to cancel. I was in a car accident. I just can't do this." Of course. And for me, it was like I was able to see her perspective. I'm like, oh, we're both struggling with this. She's feeling guilty about not being able to be present for this interview. I'm feeling a little stressed about suddenly my plans changing. Here we are both in this place of uncertainty. And my compassion for her and her situation alleviated my distress. So I didn't get angry or frustrated or mad. I just said, wow, that must have been so hard for her. She's really struggling right now with this car accident and it changing her plans. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, I have an hour and a half now that's mine that I didn't have before. That suddenly I have this opportunity to maybe create something else, but also just time that I didn't have available to me before. Would I have liked to have recorded that podcast? Of course I wanted to talk to her and wanted to make that happen, but it'll happen. When it's time, it will happen for us. And instead, I got to record this episode, so that wasn't so bad either. So I hope you'll be kind to yourself. I hope you'll take the time to tune into your stress, tune into your anxiety, allow it to be there, explore it with curiosity, a sense of calm, with compassion, taking a few deep breaths and grounding yourself and letting yourself just feel whatever it is that you're feeling. And maybe as you open up that calm, compassionate place, you might find some positives in that experience as well. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thanks again for listening and subscribing. Ciao for now from this Woman Worrier.
Thanks for listening and subscribing to the Woman Worriers podcast. Music was written and performed by Andy Cush. If you'd like more information on this episode, you can find the show notes, the resources shared today, and links to the guests' profiles at womanwarriors.com.